Good evening. I'm Father Russ Carmichael, and this is Street Talk. I want to thank you all for allowing me into your home, and all you folks that follow us and have been loyal fans and supporters and activists and people that got out to vote. You know, we love you all. And this was a double day for Dominic. Of course, my co-hostess is sitting from me. This has been a double day of working with our friends from the State House. And tonight, I'm really pleased to have my returning guest. Okay, I have Senator Paul Formica sitting across from me. And Paul, we're gonna good to Senator
Formica.
Senator, right? Yeah, no, excited to have you back, and glad you. You know, we were just saying, what do we want to talk about? Well, I want to know. You're Senator Formica. You know, you're new up there, and how do you find the hot seat now that you're in it?
Well, listen, I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to serve in this capacity. It's just been a wonderful opportunity. Whirlwind, I can't believe we're down to, 8 weeks left in the session. June 3rd, I think we may go a little bit over, but that's what they're talking about. But the fact that the time has just flown by, and we were talking a little bit before, we started the show about just the sense of history that's there, and the Capitol, and the traditions, and all of the traditions in the Senate chamber, and just to sit there, sometimes I just sit there when it's over and look around, and you meet the kids on the tours in 4th grade, and it just, I feel like a wide-eyed kid because it's just so humbling to be up there. But
the height of civic activity. That's what I look at. And so many people get mad at politicians. They think that, they're this, they're that. And you're all regular folks, regular men and women from daily lives that take an interest in their community, and you develop, and you go into a place that's responsible, and you're making decisions on thousands of people.
Well,
Each
of us represent 95 or 100,000 people in the Senate. There's 36 members in the Senate, and one thing that I tell people that I find interesting is that there are 8 new senators this year out of 36, and I think that's probably one of the largest turnovers in 20 years. I don't think they've had that many. So even though my seat was the only switch from one party to the other, there's eight new people who are excited about campaigning. They're excited about being elected as I am. They're excited about serving for the first time. And I think that there's not that history of political traps in the past from both sides or the other. So there's a lot more conversation than I would have expected. When you and I, when we talked while I was campaigning, it was fairly partisan.
Right,
Campaigns
exactly
are fairly
right.
partisan. And so you hear all of that stuff up in Hartford, but there's really a lot of conversation, and there's really a lot of respect, and there's really a lot of listening on both sides. Now, we're shifting into a new part from the committee work into the session work, and so I may find it to be a little more political as we get going, but so far, talking to people on both sides of the aisle, and it's been very receptive.
We all have to work together, and we do have to, reach across the aisle and talk to people and where they are, and listen to everybody's opinion on things. And I hope that obviously
I think there's a big
we've
change is the leadership.
Yeah,
I mean, you got leaderships on both ends
Right.
that changed. And really, if you look at the overall leadership, I mean, 3/4 of it has changed. The only person that's still in the same place is the Speaker of the House.
Yeah, Sharkey. And interesting, too, that the Speaker of the House, the Minority Leader in the House, the Senate Pro Tem, and the Minority Leader in the Senate, are from 4 contiguous towns in the New Haven area.
Yeah.
So they have a history of knowing each other a little bit, probably know a lot of the same folks and came up through a lot of the same problems. So I think it's been fairly cordial. So we'll see how it goes. But it's so far it's been People have been very respectful. You disagree. You have items that you disagree. But as you said, you have to run on a line to get elected. You pick a party, whatever it is. But once you're elected, it's incumbent upon you to represent everybody and to hear everybody's opinion.
And listen to them and do what you feel is the proper thing. I mean, that's really how it goes. I mean, it's really been, for us, obviously, we deal with some heavy issues with the disability, community, with the voices that are not usually heard, that hard, and then the justice issue is my two key areas that I deal with most, they're tough. They're tough areas. Emotional things surround them and everything. Not that it doesn't happen in many cases, but we've done very, very well, Dominic, with on both sides of the aisle, helping us along with our issues.
Yeah, we met with Senator Fasano, probably about, I went to like 5 or 6 of his constituent coffee meetings before we finally got a meeting to really talk about the juvenile sentencing issue that we were trying to get moving. And when we did, we were very blown away with where he wanted to go. Not just with that, but with the whole change in philosophy in dealing with urban issues. I think was very kind of enlightening.
Well, and I think that's a big push for our side this time. We've hired Avery Gaddis, who's working hard on urban issues with us, and Len has reached out to everybody in a lot of cities and towns. And he's, Len brings a calm voice of reason to our caucus, and he's very almost gentle.
Gentle,
he
is. Yeah, I really like him a lot.
But he's very, very smart. Yeah. He's a good leader. He's got some good common sense goals that we're looking on moving forward and thinking beyond the 2 years. And that's another thing that we must start to do, because a lot of the problems that we're facing are not going to be fixed in 1 or 2 years. We're going to have to embark on a new course.
Yeah.
We're going to have to change the process a little bit. And that's going to take some time to break down some of those barriers. But, once we begin to move forward, in the 2 to 4 to 6 year cycle, if we can stay on track, we can turn around this thing. And
we got a lot. Everything seems to be long term. I mean, I was just out there. We were talking about the bridges. I mean, you're looking 30 years out. You're looking at billions of dollars that need to be spent, and you need the leadership that watches those things. Everything that we're looking at now, it has to be long term. Our infrastructure not being taken care of over the past 65 years, since World War II. Now we're in a situation where we've got to do all these things that are coming down.
And again, we have to do things like cities and towns do. We have to make those hard decisions. We have to plan for our infrastructure. We had a 5-year capital plan we looked at every year, and you shifted things around this year and next, and I think that process is beginning. But the money that you put in there, we have to keep there. We can't be diverting money, and that's tough when you have such a budget struggle, and now they have the cap issue, and your issues that you speak to about urban and essential services for those in need, those were gutted, in the governor's budget. And those cuts can't stand. Those people are just too dependent
fragile.
And have nowhere to turn. Fragile is a great word.
Fragile.
That's a great word. It's a perfect word.
They're seriously fragile, and you cut a little bit. Most of them are not getting enough as it is. To go in there and cut and work on that thing is tragic. And,
they're getting some of them are getting just enough to survive. Some are getting just less than that.
Less than that.
And some are getting what they need. But so we have to kind of find a way to restore that. And I'm on appropriations this year. I'm on appropriations, energy, and public safety. Those are the 3 committees that we have on. And appropriations is the expenditure side of the budget.
That's right.
And there's 46 or 50 members on the appropriations committee.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they divide it. They put us into subcommittees,
Right.
and they give us a number of different agencies to review, and we're just finishing up that process and bringing it back to the big committee, and we're going to see what
So
they
now,
make.
which subcommittee are you on?
So I have Department of Public Safety, Consumer Protection, and then DDS, DSS,
Yeah,
Health. So we're looking firsthand.
You're
at
on all my issues. You're right on all my issues, Paul. Right.
Mental health,
Yeah.
all of that stuff.
All that stuff, right.
Demas, which is good because I have, experience in those issues as well.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing, and we're bringing our budget questions anyway, and I'm bringing the same process to the questions that I asked that I did as a first selectman when we had, 6 balanced budgets with surpluses, and so I'm trying to take that same approach. It's a little different.
Do you
there
feel like
because-
you're getting some of the answers back from some of these agencies? Because I got the general feeling from what I've read that many of them seem to be very kind of stonewalled or staunch in where the governor's at with
And
his budget items.
I think too, the governor has suggested that they don't talk too much to the Appropriations Committee, that they, say, look, this is the budget, you support the budget, if they have any questions, speak to, the OPM secretary and go from there. And that's not kind of how we did things. I mean, I trusted the Public Works Department in East Lyme, and because I'm not a public works guy, so here, how do I empower you to do your job
your
best?
job, right,
What do you need?
right,
How do I support you? Not how do I direct you so much, but how do I support you and give you the opportunity to move forward? So
Yeah, this morning we did a show, with Bob, and I let him go on stuff like that, being the good Democrat that I am. But of course, like a lot of people, I'm somewhat angry at our governor right now. Of course, I'm always angry at him.
Well, I think, I think, Senate Majority Leader Duff, I think, is doing a great job in his new role, and his job is to kind of quarterback the process, make sure everything, I mean, you almost don't have time to think in there, even though sometimes it's a painfully slow process. The dynamics of how it works goes pretty fast, and it's hard to keep up. So he's doing a good job with that. But I think the governor, when he gave us that budget, and I'm not being political at all tonight.
No,
I'm
no,
just
no,
talking
no,
about
no,
what
no.
is.
Yeah, what is, yeah, right.
He gave us the budget that was over the cap.
Yeah.
And so by doing that and giving us a budget that's kind of out of balance and over the cap, we're 50, 60, whatever the number is, million over the cap. We got to come down to zero. We got to bring that.
You got to bring it down.
And that still doesn't give us any room to spend anything. So now you got to say, all right, where are we going to move it? And so if we're going to, feed these essential services that, the respite service, the regional mental health boards, the RACs, disabled, all of that stuff needs support. It's got to come from somewhere.
Right.
And so that's really going to be, where the question is.
Well, that is going to be the question over the next couple of months
It's going to be real difficult, right?
where it comes from. I mean, and it is, and you're right. A lot of these things, I know people on both sides are not happy with the terms that were kind of given to them in the first place. And I think plenty of them made it very clear along those lines. And the governor's line is seemed to be very, very hard. And like you said, there's not been that openness with different department heads to be able to come up with those ideas. And so, in some ways, you're almost left with, okay, then what's our alternative to doing these things are going to be like, and I know every department has this, that they already put together a plan. What happens if we get like 5% like across the board? And that's something that could possibly be out there on the table is, if you're going to weigh these things towards social service and that's unacceptable to people, you might have, an across the board type of situation because all the department heads, they plan for these things. I mean, they have their numbers already in line about what does a 5% across the board, what does a 10% across the board look like?
Yeah, right.
And we have, now I told you, I'm on, the one that looks at public safety.
Public safety, right,
And
right.
DSS, right? So
And
just take those two.
Those two.
Public safety is showing an 8.79% increase in spending. 8.79. I mean, that's a big number.
That's a big number.
That's a big number.
That's huge.
Department of Consumer Protection, 5.63.
Okay.
Now, you take $1 billion, say protection is $1 billion, I think it's $1.2 billion for whatever their budget is, right? Now, you take 2% of that number, and you've taken $312 million out of services for children.
Yeah.
2% of that number covers that.
Yeah.
2% of that number covers that, the mental health boards,
And right.
and RAC.
And yeah,
Right? I mean, and probably the 558,000 that the respite services got taken out.
Yeah, that's
And-
right.
And so just that one department. So I think that's where the seesaw's got to be. And I think, we got to say to folks, let's look at initiatives, let's look at what we
and
got to
see,
do.
see where our priority is.
Can we
and
squeeze
can
a
we
little bit?
squeeze more?
So, I mean, what is in, I mean, when you look at that, like the public safety, you're talking, a big increase.
It's a big increase.
Is that being driven by personnel, like with their labor contracts, or is that?
I don't think any labor contract's getting an 8% increase.
No.
I think some of, at the most, it's what, 3?
3.
For the most
At
part.
the most.
I mean, 3's a big number.
Three's a
And
big
lot of
number.
them-
I would say two and a half,
Yeah.
maybe.
So I think there's a workman's comp issue
Yeah.
that they're paying off. I think some of that
Oh, it's huge,
comes
right?
out of their
That's-
budget, so I think
right.
she got hit pretty hard with that. They're still fiddling with what's going on with the dispatch.
Yeah.
Remember, they moved
Yeah,
all the
they-
individual
individual.
dispatches from the troops and
Yeah, right.
prior to her, I think, prior to her watch. And they had the centralized dispatch for the state police in Tallinn. And they did, I think, the east and the west. I don't think they ever got to the central locations, but they spent a lot of money on that.
Yeah, okay.
And that's created a lot of overtime. There's a lot of overtime in a lot of these budgets. And, but you need to have troopers on the road.
No.
And so nobody's saying take troopers off the road, but, if you're looking at things like, you have X number of new cars you're purchasing, can we get 30,000 miles out of more out of a car?
More out of a car.
And maybe you get 30,000 miles out of 4 cars, you can save buying one, And so those are, my grandfather came over from Sicily.
Yeah.
And he used to say, if you watch the pennies, the dollars will
Take-
follow.
yeah, that's
you know?
right, take care of themselves. Right,
So
yeah.
those are the kind of things that you got to do, and it's a difficult thing. And Consumer Protection has been doing great. He gave a great presentation. I guess he was a former senator. What's his name? Jonathan Harris, I think his name is. But he gave a very
sure.
good percentage about updating the way they do permits and streamlining the computer system there. And he really talked in terms of effectiveness and efficiencies, and those are the kind of conversations that I think you want to have.
Yeah, they were good and great. Talking about conversations, and a segue, I missed it, I was in Maine, and you had the local situation going down here?
Town-
You in town?
Town meetings, yeah, I've had 3 town meetings in the last 2 weeks, I guess. We did one in Old Lyme with Devin Carney, the representative there. He represents Old Lyme and West Lyme and Saybrook, and I represent some of Saybrook and Old Lyme coming up. So we did there. We had maybe 12 or 15 people show up there, and the following week we went to Waterford with Kathleen McCarty, who's the rep there.
Okay.
We had about 70 people show up
Wow.
there, so we had
That's a good
con-
turnout.
It was a good turnout
That's
in the
nice.
Waterford Town Hall, and then today we're going live today on this show, right?
Oh, yeah,
Yes, it's a
we'll,
live
yeah,
show
yeah,
today,
yeah,
so we're
we'll-
Thursday. So I think Tuesday
Uh-huh.
that we were in New London at the
Right.
City Council chamber with Representative Hewitt and Baumgartner, who
Right.
represent New London. So I'm trying to go and do these things with the representatives are there, regardless of party. I mean,
That's, no, that's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Dennis, as Dennis left, Dennis from New London, we love Dennis, who was on the earlier show, and a lot of my followers watch Dennis, was just saying, he was really, really pleased and very, very happy that you were doing that, and he was wondering why it shouldn't have happened earlier.
Well,
but good.
I just
It's
started.
You just started, and it should start. Of course, but when we were talking this morning, again, when we were talking a little bit of politics, and and I happen to say New London politics was really rough at this present time, especially where I sit in the Democratic situation. But we mentioned you were on the show, and Paul, and I said, well, everybody loves Paul. it didn't matter what, it wasn't a party thing. I didn't think it was a party thing. I said, when you got people who don't want him to run because they love him and they don't want to lose him, I said, you're a great man there. So, he enjoyed working with you and stuff like that. So, locally, we know all the work you've done from here locally and stuff like that, and translating that into the state level, which is bigger, and your style is open. You're an open tent guy. I was hearing good things. I was sorry I missed it, but
Well, we're gonna do it again, but, the other thing we brought down, Avery was there, in case anybody want to talk about specific urban, policy that we were moving forward, but I brought Damien from the Office of the Healthcare Advocate, and he gave a 5 or 10-minute presentation to everybody about, listen, if you have problems with healthcare, if you have problems accessing it, if you have problems figuring it out, here's my card, here's my number, and here's how we can help you get through that in the state. I thought that was important.
very, very important.
Well, I think they opened it back up again for, so that people have like a one last chance to be able to get health insurance so they don't have difficulties when it's tax time, because it's going to cost you money if you don't have health insurance.
One of the big cuts in the governor's budget is about 34,000 of folks that are, coming off Husky, and it's his belief that they can get into the Access Health program and get their own health care, but it's going to be difficult for a lot of those folks to afford it. So I think having the awareness that there is an agency. I don't know how many times the Office of Healthcare Advocate came to New London. So get them down there and say, let the people find out. I mean, this is what we provide.
This is what we have, this is what's going on.
May
And
not
again, a
sound
lot of times it is not knowing, not knowing how to access those things, especially for the people, when I talk about our people, marginalized individuals and stuff like that, they don't know how to access. I hand-walked many people through the system because they're not attuned to easy access, and it's hard.
And sometimes the state doesn't make it easy.
And-
I mean, you get somebody
they-
on the
they-
phone, oh, that's not my job. and you-
Well, I know you were up, you saw me up there for the elder care waiver. And
Right.
one of the main things that we were looking for all these programs, like, elder care, brain injury,
all
personal
the
care,
thing, right.
is to be able to have all these departments, when they're going to make changes to these programs, actually let the people know
Yeah, let us
who
know.
it directly affects, so that they can have some input instead of just, making some change from up at your desk without, looking at how it really affects people down on the
What happens on
ground.
Main Street? And there's a lot of that up there.
Yeah.
Let's just make changes without knowing what's happening on Main Street, or without feeling what's happening on Main Street. And, the governor offered to cut the mental health boards, the regional mental health boards. It's like $550,000, and these people are operating these agencies with 1.5 people, but the more, I think, dynamic part of it is they have been there for 40 years, and they have that network of connections. So while the office is getting paid 1.5 people, it's like they have, hundreds of people in each of these services, so they can call and they know, if you call and you need this, we'll call you because you're the answer man.
Because you're the answer man.
Yeah.
Exactly, and when you lose that, that's a serious mistake. Well, we did it in New London. We lost 2 people when we were in the social, Pat, oh God, I forgot their name, and Marion. When they cut them, they cut the ties to all kinds of agencies. I mean, that was the stupidest thing you could do, and there was no replacement, and you lose all that years of knowledge, connections, and relationships that you can get things done with, and that's scary stuff.
So, I'm sure you work with the recs, all the time. They provide great services, and we need to those are the services that if they cost $550,000, they're worth 3 times that. There are other services that we could probably find that say, well, maybe they've run their course, and maybe it's time to make a change. But the ones that kind of marginalize a lot of people and do a lot of things, those are the ones that we have to try to save. And that's what I'm trying to do, just look into the budget as much as I can. And, just so you kind of have a background on the committees, the other two committees have finished their work to a certain extent. The Public Safety Committee got their bills in, and the ones they voted to public hearing, and the ones they voted out now are being, for the most part, sent to the floor of the Senate or the House where they'll be picked up. Some went to appropriations because they had a fiscal, part to it. So the appropriations will have to look at it. And then energy, energy was a big committee this year, and it's a very difficult committee to kind of wrap your head around.
Well, we were having a good conversation about this morning because, I was saying I'm taking part in the Solarize program, which I know they did in your town.
In East Lyme, they had a big success with that.
And just how cost effective it is to be able to do the solar lease and how much money that you're going to save over it. But regionally, you have some of these bigger issues that even if you tie into solar, you're still attached to the electrical grid system. And you still have the major issues that are going on the coldest days of winter, which is we don't have enough gas to be able to fire all the houses and the power plants at the same time.
We have, it's interesting, that big push went to natural gas.
Yeah.
A few years ago, which was,
Right.
arguably a very good thing. But we don't have the pipe capacity to get it here.
I
So
know.
that's the next step that we got to do. And everybody took it so quickly that the pipe capacity, so as you say, in the coldest days of the year, that capacity's got to go to the residents. And
right.
so the natural gas that goes to the power plants need to probably get shut off sometimes. You're switching fuels back and forth to operate some of the power plants. So energy is talking about supply,
Right.
but also capacity availability
Capacity,
and,
right.
and
Yes.
transmission. And that's
Right.
a big number
Yeah.
to run a pipe. You have hydro, power from Quebec. We got to get that down here. There's got to be a vehicle for that. There's, natural gas. There's all of this stuff with solar, which is big. But solar, as you rightfully pointed out with that net metering, you have the solar and it works fine, and you may send some extra back. But if you have a few days like we've had today, you
Yeah.
need a backup
You
system.
need backup.
So you need to be
You need-
tied to
right,
the.
right.
You need to be tied to the grid.
Grid.
So
The grid, right.
there's got to be a cost for that,
Right.
right? I mean, you can't expect the utilities to provide you that for free
That's
and then
right.
pay you for whatever you send back
Well, I
when you
think
turn it
the
on.
way
So-
that they're supposed to do it is they're supposed to right size your house based upon your electric bill.
Right.
So when
They're
they're
trying to do
doing
80%.
when they're doing the leases or other things along those lines, they won't allow you to build a system bigger than what you're actually using because
I think it's going to 80% of what you use to make sure that you're just under.
I think that they let me go like a lot higher than that
Did
because
they?
I put a heat pump in my house, and this is the first winter that I was like first using it. Like it's the second heat pump, and my electric bills obviously went a lot higher. My gas bills went a lot lower because of that. But I had them resize it, and they put on like 4 extra panels to the system design that they were going to do because
One of the big
increase.
things we're trying to do is, the fixed cost as a result of a lot of this solar stuff. The energy companies are saying we need to raise our fixed fee
Yes.
because we're not generating enough. It's like what we did in East Lyme. You conserve water and you use less water. Well, that's the revenue that the water company gets is from the sale of water.
Yes,
So if you use less, you're getting that, and I think that's what's happening to the power companies. People are conserving, they're using less, they're switching to the renewables like solar, and so they're trying to say, let's raise that fixed fee, and there was a bill to reduce it from $20 down to 10.
Yep.
And that's great, except I kept asking, where's that other 10 gonna go? They're not gonna just say, okay, fine, we'll eat the 10. They're gonna stick it somewhere.
They're gonna
So we
put it
gotta make sure
somewhere
we know where that goes.
Where is it going to go?
Well, I think that, obviously, this kind of ties into transportation, is as we talk about more conservation and other things along those lines, we need to change the structure of how we're taking in and paying for some of these things, like the electrical infrastructure, the transportation infrastructure. You got cars that have better gas mileage, you're depending upon, a per gallon gas tax, and now it doesn't make sense, whereas back in the mid-90s, when we all were driving SUVs, and the price of gas was low, and then you switch it over to the gross receipts tax, and now all of a sudden gas drops down, and it's like you have a double whammy.
There's a lot more electric vehicles
Yeah.
on the road.
Oh, yeah, and
so
they're
you're
coming.
using less.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly right. And the technology is going to reduce that gas. Okay, that's not gonna increase. That's what all the technology is about. Whether you're using solar, whether you're using electric, stuff like that. That's the future. So how can you depend on the
The other half of it is when you're paying you're buying your gas, you don't really think about the gas tax.
No, you don't.
While you're sticking it in your tank, you're seeing the end result, the number. This is why I think people have such an outcry about like tolls, is because, yeah, you see it. Oh, I'm actually paying for this, as well as the inconvenience of, we're stopping and having to throw money in. But there has to be some better system that's going to work within this where, because when people don't see it taking a little bit at a time, they don't mind it. But when they get a big bill for it and realize how much money is really being spent, that's when they all go crazy about it.
I'm lucky. I use Easy Pass and Angie pays for it. So when I go, like when I went to Maine, I wasn't even thinking about it. All I go through those things and they go, and that's ringing up money there.
Comes out of a credit card somewhere else. Right?
Yeah, and my baby pays for it.
My kids all have Easy Passes on their cards, but their credit cards aren't tied to it. It's my credit.
It's yours.
How's that work?
That works. See, I lucked out.
Yeah.
I lucked out.
I gotta learn from you a little bit. I gotta take some lessons. I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah, you gotta.
Yeah, the only problem is he gave his kid the business. He still does all the work.
That's true too.
Okay, so I guess nothing's
It all equals out somewhere.
That's
in
what
there.
you got to do. You got to give them everything. You got to give turnover
Yeah.
everything.
Well,
And
my
then,
two youngest are working in the restaurant now.
Yeah.
My daughter, Olivia, has a degree from the Culinary Institute of America, so she just took over the kitchen. My great kitchen manager, I had him for 13 years. Jeff, he did a great job and left his kids were getting to the age where he wanted to be regular hours and not restaurant hours.
Some people,
So-
I just thought about it, we're up in different venues. Paul, yeah, you need to say where the restaurant is, because a lot of our viewers are not local, they're from other parts of the state, which, you know.
Well, we don't have to advertise. I'm just saying my
Well,
daughter's there.
No, but
and then-
it's not about advertising, but it's the way that you've developed that business on there and the people that you've had with you. When I talk about jobs and stuff like that, I mean, you care about who's working for you.
Well, you talk about one of that paid sick leave that went in a couple of years ago. Now, we never really had to worry about it because I think the kicks in when you have 50 employees.
Right.
And we were about 40, 45 at the most, Well, last year we kicked in, we had 53 in the summer quarter. So now, even though we provide 2 weeks paid vacation, everybody that works there, whether you're a dishwasher or sweep the floor, or whether you're a manager, you get an average 2 weeks of the weeks you work, right? You work 20 hours a week, you get 2 weeks for 20 hours. If you work 40, then they get paid sick time, they get pension, and health insurance. That I provide 50% of their health insurance. So, because if you're going to have a business, it's not one-sided. You need great employees.
Right.
So now that we hit 53, my bookkeeper's got to look and count every time an employee hits 680 hours. He's got to log that, keep track of it, and we got to make sure that the sick is being provided, even though we're providing all of that other stuff, and we'll get credit for that.
Right.
It's just another level of bookkeeping that we'll have to do. And listen, some people need that kind of push to provide benefits to folks, but I think most businesses are doing it the right way and taking care of their folks.
Well, I know yours is.
Yeah.
And that's Flanders.
Flanders Fish Market, yeah.
Flanders-
As I said, my
Flanders, right.
youngest is in the
I'm
kitchen.
gonna get it in, you know I'm
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
get it in.
thank you.
Is that an East line?
Yes, it is.
What exit would I take to get to it?
Yeah, I'm gonna get it in there. Well, because, I mean, when we were talking about job, okay, and how you treat your employees, I happen to know how Paul treats his employees, how his business philosophy is. And it's a good business philosophy, and it's one of the, you know, I'm proud that people do that. I'm not necessarily sure all people do that, you know what I mean?
Like anything, there's good and bad,
Right.
you know, but there's generally more good than bad in people.
But your
whether
people
you're-
have been with you a long time.
20 years,
20
18
years.
years, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, and that's, you know, so forgive me for being,
Well, I have to give my daughter Hannah's a
She-
couple years older than Olivia.
Well,
She's got a business systems degree, and she's working out front. So, you know, they're beginning the process of taking over, and they're actually, you know, I'm not giving them the manager thing, you know, because I have managers that have been there, as you said, 18 years.
Yeah,
So
right.
they got to earn that, you
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
and that's what they're doing. I have great people that work there, and you know, but we have to work to make the business environment better in the state of Connecticut. You know, we have more people leaving every day than coming in. We have businesses that are leaving.
I know.
And the tax situation is difficult. The regulatory environment is not good. And you know, we have to really work on focusing jobs for young people, housing for young people, transportation, as you said, not only fixing our rivers, I'm sorry, our roads and bridges.
Right.
But we got to get rail, we got to have transit, you know, and
well, and New London is good, and again, I'm so happy with you and the leadership position that you're in, and I'm happy that Andy's, bless him, is back to work, and
He's coming
and you're-
back strong.
and
He
he's
was with him
coming,
this morning. He looks great.
You know, and with the development of the water system, the deep water port, I mean, a lot of our people don't understand the benefit because of the Panama Canal that we could have here, and the rail being
That Central
the
Rail
Central
Corridor
Rail
we
Corridor.
worked on was
It
huge.
has to be brought up to standard so that goods can be shipped up. All these things are seriously important, and you need serious leaders that understand the complexities of business and what's needed. And I mean,
plus, you know, the other thing is, I think we're very lucky here, because New London, I think, is a gem. I think it's a diamond in the rough. It's got everything. If you sit and look of all of the natural resources that it has,
I know it.
and the man-made stuff with the village right on the water, and the beautiful Main Street and architecture, it's just, I mean, we just have to spruce it up, get some good water and sewer support to it to make sure that the businesses grow. Up State Street, then the Coast Guard Museum comes, and you have the rail, and you have boats, and as you say, the port around the corner with
Right.
the Tiger grant that we got that's going to bring the opportunity to ship freight from that port up to Stafford Springs, and
I think it goes all the way up to
Brattleboro.
Vermont.
Oh,
It
yeah,
goes to
yeah,
Montreal.
to Montreal,
Yeah.
it goes all the way to Canada.
And
yeah.
once you hit,
You know.
I think once you hit Brattleboro, you can go east and west and probably get it to Los
The
Angeles.
reason I know Carmichael Trucking comes out of Canada. And that's gonna, I don't know if that's gonna help their business or lose it, so, you know, it's either the Italians or the Scots, one way or another, they're gonna get that money.
Yeah, well, you know,
But,
and
you
it's
know,
important because there are a number of businesses in Willimantic and Wyndham and Norwich and Stafford
Yeah, right.
Springs that are going to benefit by having that train there. That
Oh,
are, you know, are trucking some of their materials in and out of Willimantic and
Well,
Wyndham.
it can alleviate some of the transportation issues
Yeah.
on the other end,
On
on
the other
our
end.
highway.
Sure.
Which is a big deal.
Oh, yeah, it's a real big deal. It's huge.
Well, if
The whole development that's coming over the next 10, 15 years is huge. And I don't think a lot of, and what my concern is that the lower end individuals benefit from that. In the job area, I always worry about, you know, high-tech jobs and stuff like that. We got a great workforce, an educated workforce, but it's the low end that is it has my concern. I mean, they don't seem to be benefiting from what's going on.
Well, as you know, you probably read the same thing I read. We're 40th from the bottom nationwide in southeastern Connecticut in economic recovery.
Yeah.
Nationwide.
Nationwide,
I mean,
yeah.
so we need these types of initiatives to come
Right.
out. Not only we need EB in a year or two, they'll be ready to ramp up with their, as you say, higher skilled workforce,
Yeah.
the management level, the designers and all of that. That's going to be good. But we're going to need, let's talk about the casino. I mean, we have 2 tribes that employ 7,000 people each.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, that, I have 32 years in the hospitality business. I mean, I have those managers that we talked about that have been there 18 years, all own homes. They all own cars now. They have
Right.
raising their children. Some are single moms, single dads, and they're helping each other out to get through that. Those casinos have provided good jobs. And you remember back in the early 90s when EB was down to around 7,000.
Yeah, right.
If Foxwoods didn't come in and pick up that slack,
It wouldn't, yeah, a lot of
we would have
people
been in big trouble. Would have
a
been
lot of trouble.
Sagebrush City coming around here.
Yeah.
So now we have the question that they want us to allow some satellite facilities. One over here in 91,
Right.
in between Hartford and Springfield, because the new MGM is going to be built right in downtown Springfield. And then another one perhaps either in Danbury or that area or down in Bridgeport, because they can measure the business they've lost by the slots
By
in
the slot,
Yonkers
yeah, right.
and by the slots in Rhode Island.
Exact.
And they already know what's going to be. So can we afford to lose another, as they're predicting, 9,300 jobs they're predicting that we'll lose?
Yeah.
So I think we have to.
I think, well, you've got to protect them.
Yeah.
I mean, you see what Massachusetts is doing. It's the one thing I've always, of course, the gambling business, I was in a long time. But you only have so much of a pool, so you got to protect your pool, and it's convenient. People who play the slots or I'm a handicapper, they want convenience, okay? And they're not going to travel no 100 miles just because you got a fancier place.
If they can travel 20.
If I can travel 20.
Yep.
If I'm going to go where I'm going to travel 20, and that's just common sense.
So I think what they're
I
talking
they'll-
about is $700 million in lost revenue, 9,000 jobs, as I said. And so the idea is if they're allowed to come together,
Right.
both tribes come together as one entity
Right.
and open a casino, that they're going to put $300 million in to build. And I think a lot of their strategy is, one, get those convenience gamblers.
Convenience. that's
Some
what
of the
it
money that comes out of that will, again, go to a pool for problem gambling, because there's, I think,
Yeah,
problem gambling
yeah,
and
yeah.
convenience gamblings are
says.
different
Two
people.
different.
But so they capture that, but then they'll say, here you're sitting here, here's a ticket to a show, see Springsteen at the main resort in
Well,
Uncasville.
I think Mohegan Sun, they're not just out here. They also, I think they have facilities in New York and several other
They're
different
Poconos.
places.
I think they're
Poconos.
Poconos, yeah,
Yeah, right.
Plus, they
Yeah.
just opened a couple of franchise little
Franchise,
restaurants, right?
right.
Smash Burgers.
But still, when you're talking about it, even if they're franchised out, you're talking about the population within your structured area. That you don't want to lose them. You don't want them to, okay, because you want the people here. You want to keep them here. But if somebody opens up, if your casino's down this corner, and some of your people, if they open up right over here, they're going to go to the closest one, and that's what's going to happen, and it's happened before. I mean, they know. I mean, they study all that stuff. I mean, they...
And you might
know.
get somebody that'll have to drive from Uncasville maybe to Bridgeport a
Yeah.
couple days a week, or, to keep a job, but what's the choice? Would you make a drive like that to keep your job? Or some people might say, you know what, I'll take my chances and go where... But a lot of people will say, I want to, I've been here 10 years, I want to keep working,
And they do create jobs at a level that I'm comfortable with. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to work at the casino. There's all kinds of jobs, cleanup, really the low end of the
What's the whole
population
spectrum?
spectrum,
Yep,
okay, that they employ. And I like that. I mean,
So I think that I supported that bill coming out of committee.
That's good.
We have about 2,000 people that work in the 20th district that work in those jobs there. So we got to try to protect those. But is that the answer to our economic problem? No. It's a piece.
It's one of
And
them,
I think
yeah.
we have to remember that. We don't want to do this times 4 if those
Right,
two
right,
are
you're
successful.
successful, right.
We got to just say, listen, enough's enough. The state will benefit because they'll have the 25% slot revenue
Right.
from the 2 main campuses, and it'll be a different revenue
From the others,
from the
on
other
the
2
side.
on all this stuff. They have table games there.
Yeah.
That's what should be negotiated, and they should pay some money. But, it's got to be a piece of it, and we got to, again, talk about what you and I talked about early on, the regulatory environment and growing small business, because they are the job creators in this country.
And I really said so. Whose show was I was talking to some? Oh, it was Mike Passero. I was talking to Michael on the show, and I said, "Well, I only run a small business, right? I only employ about 7 people or something like that." And he turned to me and he said, "That's pretty successful, Father."
Yeah.
He said, "I didn't know." I said, "Oh yeah, well, I'm in the home healthcare business, right?" And I was talking about New London, and usually it's 7, and most of the people have been with me 13 years. Yeah, pretty much. God, not all of them. that I haven't had anybody that hasn't been with me a long. Probably 11 is the lowest person, but it's home health care and stuff like that. And I don't think of it that way. You know what I mean? I just think of it as a small business. We
Yeah.
take care of a few people and stuff like that.
But still, you have those 7 people
But
that are
employed and yeah,
they're
exactly
paying
right.
rent, they're owning a house, or they're buying
exactly
gas, or
right.
they're-
That's exactly
eating
right.
at restaurants?
And, yeah,
Well, I mean,
exactly right.
the other half of it too is,
Yeah.
I mean, these programs, they're 50% federally, provided for. So you're also taking money from, different areas throughout the country, and you're bringing it back to here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the work that we do, exactly right. Yeah, hopefully that'll keep on going for another, well, my daughter, another 30 years or something
Yeah.
like that, right?
Well,
Yeah. But,
it's after a while, it's up to them,
Oh, yeah, yeah, exactly. Mine, probably like yours, grew up with the stuff I do and everything else like that. Some got involved in the kind of stuff I do, and of course others go their own way. And but most are in business-minded individuals, and I've been very blessed with my kids. Not so good with my wives, but my kids were okay, right?
Well, I have 2 kids one lives in New York City.
Yeah.
She runs a digital content business for herself that she consults with people. And my son is out in Los Angeles. So, 28 she just turned, and 30. And, that's the demographic we need to come back to Connecticut.
Yeah.
We need a bullpen.
Yeah.
Because...
Well, that's where my baby, she's 30.
Yeah.
They're in the 30th, and that's why it's time for her to take the
Yeah.
business, and well, she'll run it, and she does 2 things. She's in the Coast Guard, and
Oh,
her
she?
husband, she's a Coast Guard officer on the Coast Guard. And
For her, that's hard work. That's hard stuff. Smart kid.
And my son-in-law is involved in the business, and she does a lot of the books and stuff like that, and takes care of now taking care of everything, right? Oh my God, I can't believe it! That flashed 5 minutes. It seems like we just sat down.
Yeah,
and,
we
and-
did. I
and-
know.
and-
You have such a great show. You guys do a good job.
Well, we get a lot of information out. We've with Dominic, we've had tremendous guests over the last year and a half. All informative, and like yourself, lets people know what's going on around the city. And of course, this is live. Usually we get call-ins, but if you're informing people, most of them seem to listen.
Well, we hope to continue. I hope you'll have me back, but I hope that also that we'll have the opportunity to come back to New London as the process moves forward. I'd like to do one more, maybe in between now and the end of session. As I said, the committee work is about done. The Appropriations Committee, I think Finance and Judiciary, I think they're days to get bills out, or the end of the April. I think what judiciary is Tuesday, but I think
Yeah.
appropriations is April 30th, I think. They have to
Yeah.
come out. And then it moves into that process of where the bills are considered on the House and the Senate. I think that's what, if they go onto the CGA website, it's CGA for Connecticut General Assembly. So it's cga.ct.gov. If you go on there, you can actually look at a day. Today's Thursday, April 9th. You go down there, it'll tell you the Judiciary Committee. You click on that, and it will say, what's the agenda? You click on that, and all the bills.
Well, I know, I look on it
Right.
like three, 4 times a day.
Yeah,
That's how I keep up on what's going on with everything that we're
It's a
doing.
great website.
Oh, it is,
Because
it
you can
is.
click on the bill number, and it tells you can read actually what
Yep.
the bill is, and people need to do that. They need
I probably learned more off of that website about what the process is, like after something gets joint favorable, then it has to go to LCO, and it
Yeah.
has to be analyzed. They have a certain
You
date,
got
they
all
got a
the lingo down.
setback.
You're doing pretty good. You got-
Oh,
all
yeah,
the lingo.
he's a gem, he
Yeah.
really is. He's so much work that he does for us and keeps us informed, and I'm fortunate to have I have an active following. Okay, the people who watch us and deal with us are activists. Okay, they're into the things we're into. They'll pick up the phone, they'll write the letter, and they vote. You got to vote. That's the most important thing.
And you know what, I want to be able to, before we close,
Go
just to
ahead.
first invite you both up there, and invite anybody that's here in the district or outside the district, because I think people should see that building, they should feel what it's like up there. I mean, we were talking before the show about, that opening day and how it felt, it's exciting, and the League of Women Voters gives a great tour, it doesn't cost anything, for an hour, and so come on up, and I'll show you around, and give you a little taste of what's going on up there, and I think that's what it's about. It's the people's house.
So I hope all you folks out there, you heard Paul, he wants you up to State House. You need to go up to the legislative building up there and visit them and let them know what's going on in our area. And I'm really glad to have you on. I'm
pleasure,
really,
thank you.
okay, you're going to be back with us, right?
I'd love to if you'll have me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, we'll
This
set up.
is my bookie. That's my booking agent right there. He books all the shows now.
So next time, if you want, once we get going in session, we'll pick a few bills if you want, we'll print them out, and then we'll kind of go over the process of what a bill reads like.
That's really good. I'd like to, we need to get a schematic or something of how everything works
Yeah.
over there for our people. I was thinking about that this morning. But you got about 30 seconds. You want to say anything? Or?
I just, again, want to thank everybody. First, thank you for having me on tonight. Thank you for the opportunity to have me go to Hartford and represent you. If you have any ideas, my website is on there. It's Paul Formica at cga.ct.gov. Give me an email. I have a great aide. Come up and see me, call me, let me know. And we'll be back, and we'll talk about what we need to talk about as we get through the session and try to make structural changes for the better everywhere we can up there.
Great, Paul.
All right,
Bless you.
thank you.
Thank
And
you.
see you next week. Pray for me. I pray for you. Okay? And next week,
You and me, probably.